I am Pragya, and I bring to you excerpts from the current issue of Outlook. The issue looks at two cover stories. One, in which Outlook continues to cover Gaza and reaffirms its commitment to bearing witness. In this issue, there's a double cover with a dedication to poet and academic Rafat Al-Arir, also called the Voice of Gaza, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike. The cover is an image composed of many images of ruins and remnants in Gaza, arranged as a mountain to show the scale of loss. Painful Silence by Pratiti Roy. She's a doctoral fellow at the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. As of November 2023, the Gaza Health Ministry reported that around 15,000 people had been killed in the war with Israel, and the death toll continues to rise. According to CARE International, a global humanitarian agency, a staggering 70% of the people killed in Gaza are women and children. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East is facing a severe lack of funds and facilities as around 250,000 internally displaced persons are seeking shelter. According to estimates by UN Women, 50,000 women in Gaza are pregnant, and about 5,000 women are scheduled to give birth in December. Needless to say, the current war between Israel and Palestine has disregarded basic humanitarian needs and the rights of innocent civilians. Despite decades of efforts by world leaders and organizations to broker peace between the two countries, the Israel-Palestine conflict has only grown more violent and destructive. With no end in sight to the war, innocent nationals on both sides are bearing the brunt of it. However, the current loss and destruction faced by Palestinians is incomparable, and the devastation that the war has caused to the psyche and lives of the most vulnerable of its citizens, women, children, and the elderly, is irreversible. The impact of the war has been particularly brutal on Palestinian women, who continue their resistance against the settlers while losing their sons and daughters, amongst other loved ones. All wars are gendered, since the experience of violence in a conflict manifests differently for different genders. Historically, in wars, domination over women has been equated with asserting dominance over their nation and culture. This subjugation is both physical and mental and involves, in the least, sexual and gender-based violence along with domestic abuse within their communities. Women have targeted needs and require specific assistance and gender rights, which are often seized or unavailable in a war zone, making them more vulnerable to violence and abuse. Moreover, the physical and psychological trauma endured by women during war is silenced or forgotten, and their sacrifices are relegated to a mere footnote. Indeed, it can be argued that the questions and meanings related to women's rights and peace cannot be separated from each other while analyzing situations of conflict. Being in a war zone robs the civilians of their agency, culture, identity, and basic human rights. Palestinians have been subjected to war and armed conflict since their violent displacement and dispossession by the Israeli army in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The majority of Palestinians had to leave their homeland in 1948, an event known as Nakba, or the catastrophe in Arabic. Women in Palestine have described the loss of one's homeland and homes as akin to losing a loved one. Today, life in Palestine involves living in a state constantly at war and having to face unprecedented violence at any given time. The unmatched violence in the current war has displaced millions internally and forced them to seek security within refugee camps. For this and more, read the current issue of Outlook.